free speech is in a free fall in Europe. There are two anti-free speech movements that have coalesced. One is in Europe, where it has laid waste to free speech. Germany, France, England, free speech has been eviscerated. And also places like Canada. The U.S. anti-free speech movement began in higher education, then metastasized throughout the government. But this has all reached our shores now. The Berlin World Forum followed the remarks of Vice President Vance on free speech, and the EU was red hot. They gathered in Berlin, and it was the most anti-free speech gathering I've ever been part of. There's only two of us from the free speech community. And they are committed. And, you know, Hillary Clinton was there, and she really fueled the anger. I mean, she, when Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk, she called on the EU to use the infamous Digital Services Act, which is one of the most anti-free speech pieces of legislation in decades. And she called upon the EU to use the DSA to force the censorship of American citizens, force people like Musk to censor. It's an extraordinary act by someone who was once a presidential candidate in the United States. But they are committed to it. And after the World Forum, they further globalized this effort, and they are threatening companies like X with ruinous fines unless they resume censoring American citizens.
So, foreign, tyrannical, unelected powers are trying to censor your speech. Are you upset? We want Trump to make it a major issue. I want you to make it a major issue. This is so simple. And it teaches us to get behind our sovereignty and stand up for ourselves and our territorialism about our basic freedom. All right, I want to say something about the EU's attack on Elon Musk and the fact that Hillary Clinton and the globalists are all behind it. We'll play some clips of that. Trump shouldn't just speak out against this, which he hasn't done yet. J.D. Vance has. He should make a huge deal about it. Because America is waking up to its sovereignty being attacked. And the Somali issue is small, but it's a place of people waking up, so it's important. Compared to the EU and BlackRock and the globalists and the economic warfare they're engaged in against our cities, states, counties, against our economic systems, where they come in and try to dictate with their 80+% control of world assets, all the political activity where you live. Texas just won major cases a few months ago with BlackRock saying you have to divest all oil and gas in Texas. We went and sued them, said it's racketeering, they lost. So any special interest, communist China, Russia, the EU, Israel, any of these, but BlackRock is bigger. It's just the holding company. It's really Vanguard, State Street, it's all the same group. 87% control of world assets through fraud. You want to address that. You want to address the ESG. You want to address those systems. So I saw this analyst, he's dead on, about EU slaps X $140 million fine. And I want to dovetail it with Professor Jonathan Turley, who's a liberal, by the way, exposing how Hillary is behind so much of the censorship with the EU. But that's what's happening, and Trump should address it head on. Head on. And then it rallies Americans. It doesn't just stop the tyranny. It rallies us to realize we're under attack from outside interests, as Victor Booth said. And the same interests attacking Russia are the same ones attacking us. You heard Booty's very influential in Russia. You heard him explaining how communism was put on them by British intelligence. They put Lenin in. All of it. The Russians know this stuff, folks. They have really begun major reforms more than us. That's why there's general Hollywood leftist hate for Russia, because they figured it out. And it's a model for what we should do. Hell yeah, we're not going to let NATO drag us into full war. Praise God Trump's doing this. This is exciting. And Elon Musk is a champion in this fight and is under attack. And if you don't rally to his support, you're not supporting yourself, because they got to get through him to get to you and I and silence us. Here's the clips.
The European Union just made a catastrophic mistake. They just ignited a war they can't possibly win. They launched the first strike, and now both the Trump administration and Elon Musk are together firing back, and nothing less than the future of the EU European Commission, led by ultra-globalist liberals, just announced that they are fining Elon Musk's X, formerly known as Twitter, 120 million euros for violating their Digital Services Act, which is the EU's sweeping new law designed to regulate the internet, big tech, and censor populist voices. They say X's blue check mark is deceptive, that their advertising database lacks transparency, and that researchers can't access public data, yada, yada, yada. But here's the truth. Here's what's really happening. X is now the #1 news app in every single European Union country. Every single one. Austria, Belgium, Bulgaria, Croatia, Cyprus, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Germany. We could go on and on and on. All 27 EU nations now get their news from X more than any other platform. And of course, what that therefore means is that every day, tens of millions of Europeans are bypassing the EU's propaganda machine and getting unfiltered news directly from X. The European Commission can't control the narrative anymore. And that's why they're panicking, and for good reason. I mean, take a look at the latest polls coming out of Germany. The German Patriot Party, their MAGA party, it's known as the AfD, the Alternative for Deutschland, they're polling in first place with 26% of the vote. They're consistently polling above the CDU, the Christian Democrat Union, which was Angela Merkel's party. That's the party that's been in power virtually every single decade since the end of the war. The Nationalist Populist AfD is so popular that German authorities are actively attempting to ban the party. I kid you not. German lawmakers have been using what they call extremist classification and domestic intelligence operations to try to get the AfD completely banned from German politics. And as it turns out, that's the standard. That's the default playbook for the bullies in Brussels as well. It's no coincidence that populist parties are surging all throughout the continent at the same time. X is the single most popular source for news among Europeans. The two go hand in hand. The rise of alt media and alt politics, as we see with the alt for Germany, right? The AfD, they are reciprocal risings. And so the very same suppressive tactics we're seeing in Berlin are being duplicated by the bullies in Brussels with this punitive fine. And the Trump administration, they aren't having any of it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio did not hold back. He posted on X, quote, the European Commission's $140 million fine isn't just an attack on X, it's an attack on all American tech platforms and the American people by foreign governments. The days of censoring Americans online are over. And then the Trump administration did something unprecedented. Within 24 hours, the State Department issued a directive to every U.S. embassy and consulate worldwide. I kid you not, this is stunning. Deny visas to anyone who works in fact-checking capacities, content moderation, trust and safety, or combating misinformation, that quote-unquote misinformation. That's right. I mean, if you've ever worked to censor speech online, you are now officially banned from entering the United States. I mean, this is huge. The directive specifically targets H-1B visa applicants and instructs consular officers to examine LinkedIn profiles, work histories, and media mentions for evidence of censorship activities. A State Department spokesperson was crystal clear. We do not support aliens coming to the United States to work as censors, muzzling Americans. And that's nothing. And I mean nothing compared to Elon Musk's response. Elon has officially gone full nuclear.
But you have to go full nuclear here. And when I said Trump hasn't done anything yet, I mean himself hasn't made a statement. But here's what just happened. The U.S. State Department just put a sanction on to globalist EU censors that we know Biden front-loaded with billions of dollars of censorship money that are attacking this country and administration. That is real action. Because Trump can't get action out of the DOJ and the FBI. The culture is just too candy-ass, too cowardly, too traitorous. But with his executive power, he can get a lot done. And this is criminal. I mean, we hear all day about how evil Russia is because it's censoring this and that. On the scale of censorship, I've looked at the numbers. It's like a 1 compared to Germany or the UK is a 10. I mean, Germany and UK censor as bad as China or North Korea. I mean, they're the heavyweight champions of all this stuff, so they can't sit around and look. Hey, Russia's its own country. Make it freer or whatever, but don't use it as a litmus test. Oh, they're bad. Let's go to war with them because they do this, and then you're 10 times worse. It's like it doesn't hold water. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. The Trump administration just put sanctions on fact checkers, censors, Ministry of Truth, anybody that works for it. And these people are all back and forth. Just like Victor Boots said last hour, if you look it up, Obama, when Trump got reelected, moved their CIA operations with Brennan to London, and they're all quarterbacking this against us. Because of the special relationship with the UK after World War II and our intelligence. And everybody obsesses on Israel, and that's fine. Not taking away from that fetish, and we got big problems with Israel. Israel doesn't get unfettered access to all U.S. intelligence. One country does, the UK. That means all your phone calls, all your email, live time. I mean, they've got it all, folks. But it's not fashionable to talk about that. You just talk about Israel all day. That's retarded. You can be against bad stuff Israel's doing and not want undue influence and block it, which we do, but also know about China and the UK and the EU. I mean, these are other big players, folks. And sure, the Israel lobby and all that's hooked into it all, and the Rothschilds at the British level. So maybe, okay, but see, we're kind of above Israel up to the higher floor of management here. So if you need to make it Jewish to care about it, okay, yeah, there's a huge Jewish control up at the top of it. There. Now, can we deal with the British intelligence police a little bit? But it's even bigger than that. It's the British Empire, folks. Didn't just go away. It's corporate. So the good news is the Great Awakening's here. And there's no putting the genie back in the bottle. And I didn't ask Victor Boot when he was talking. I almost did, wrote a note, but forgot to get to it. I said, have you read Carol Quigley's Strategy and Hope, 1,100 pages long? Head of Georgetown Political Science, Bill Clinton's mentor? Because he wouldn't know all that stuff if he hadn't read that. I know Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote about it too, but everything Boot said was true because I already know it, up one side and down the other. And it was like, watching it, I was kind of like dizzy a few times. I'm like, it's like I'm talking to myself. But it's not that he's even listening to me, which he's been doing for a long time. He already knows all this stuff. My point is that we have the enemy plans. We can beat this thing, but we got to get serious. And listen, the Tim Pool, Candace Owen fights, very cute. And you spend all, but it's a tar baby. Obviously, I don't believe the official story of Charlie Kirk. It's a giant fiasco. But the left stood to gain the most from it, and now it's tearing apart the Republican Party. I can sit back and look at the results of it and say, hey, question it all day. Do whatever you need to. I'm not putting down anybody that does that. But I'm not going to spend half my time or more on the latest soap opera fights between people. Not going to do it. Because when we cover real issues, we're able to move the needle in government and in corporations in life. But if you're busy all day, like callers call in and they'll attack Israel. And they'll say it like with bated breath, like they're about to get censored. Like, they're not going to get censored. Nope. No. It's the most popular thing now to bash Israel. It's the safest thing to do. And Israel's fabulously corrupt and manipulative and deceptive, like all these other systems. So see, when I approach the different arms of the Jewish lobby and mafia, I don't do it from hate. I do it from like a scientist just addressing something that's going on. And that disarms the, oh, you're just persecuting us because we're Jewish. Most Jews aren't involved in all this. And I bring up the Jew thing because I've been there 31 years, and early on it was all like, you got to say Catholics run it all, and Catholics are inherently bad, and Catholics are, so I was like, Catholics are diverse, and yeah, the globalists have taken over a lot of the Catholic Church, but you know, I'm not going to sit. You have to like play this game where you have to connect it to a Catholic. Well, this guy is a Catholic, and this one's so the whole conspiracy is a Catholic. It's a diversion. How about we just oppose bad policies? How about we just expose the cashless society? How about we stand for the family? And then it's about policy, and now you can unify people of every race, color, creed, religion around that instead of the infighting that goes on. And I'm not saying don't criticize the Vatican. God knows I do. But I don't blame Catholics for that. Just like I don't blame Chinese for their Communist Party leadership. And that's all I'm saying is when we have a disproportionate coverage of one thing, and when I come out and point out what China's doing or the EU or NATO, I see the constant comments, oh, why are you covering up for this? It's not covering something up. Like if I go to the grocery store and I get a thing of carrots, but also, you know, buy a bunch of other stuff. Or maybe one time I go to the grocery store, I don't buy carrots. I'm not against carrots. Today I wasn't going to the store to get carrots. There's more in the store than carrots. And you got to get the big view and the big understanding and the larger system. That's how we change things. That's how we fix things. But here's Jonathan Turley, respected law professor, explaining just how some of the censorship works. So when you know it's coming after Elon to get through him to get to you, know where it's coming from. Here it is.
Free speech is in a free fall in Europe. There are two anti-free speech movements that have coalesced. One is in Europe, where it has laid waste to free speech. Germany, France, England. Free speech has been eviscerated. And also places like Canada. The U.S. anti-free speech movement began in higher education, then metastasized throughout the government. But this has all reached our shores now. The Berlin World Forum followed the remarks of Vice President Vance on free speech, and the EU was red hot. They gathered in Berlin, and it was the most anti-free speech gathering I've ever been part of. There's only two of us from the free speech community. And they are committed. And, you know, Hillary Clinton was there, and she really fueled the anger. I mean, she, when Twitter was purchased by Elon Musk, she called on the EU to use the infamous Digital Services Act, which is one of the most anti-free speech pieces of legislation in decades. And she called upon the EU to use the DSA to force the censorship of American citizens, force people like Musk to censor. It's an extraordinary act by someone who was once a presidential candidate in the United States. But they are committed to it. And after the World Forum, they further globalized this effort, and they are threatening companies like X with ruinous fines unless they resume censoring American citizens.
So, foreign, tyrannical, unelected powers are trying to censor your speech. Are you upset? We want Trump to make it a major issue. I want you to make it a major issue. This is so simple. And it teaches us to get behind our sovereignty and stand up for ourselves and our territorialism about our basic freedom. Because if you don't have speech, you don't have anything. I know most of you know this, but we need to get more upset about this.